This, yeah, I'll just get going here with the stream. Cool. Hey everyone, welcome. Joining in. Make sure you tell your friends. We're about to get started. Excited to have everyone here. Alejandro is here. Excited to learn from him. What's going on, Alejandro?
Hi there. Glad to be here.
Yeah.
We're happy to have you, man. It's exciting. It's exciting.
Absolutely.
Very, very. So we've been, hey everyone, welcome if you're just joining. We'll get started here in a sec. Yeah, we've been chatting for like the last 15, 20 minutes. We just couldn't actually get off of the fact that we're just reconnecting together, which is always fun.
Yeah.
So you guys know a little.
You know?
Anthony and Alejandro, we all went to school together. So we were all in the same class, Group 38 at Juilliard. Of course, you know that. So it's really great to see where everybody's career has taken them and what they're doing with their art and how they're using it to give back and how we're all using it to help you guys get into school.
That's right. So I'm very honored. We'll get it started. Welcome, everybody. So I know that the folks who are watching this, whether you're live or whether you're watching the recording, are serious about getting into drama school. And that's what we're doing here. We're very excited about, just helping you guys out. We were there. We were you. 10 years ago, we were just actors who were passionate about the craft and wanted to take it to the next level. For some reason, we were encouraged to apply for the best schools, and we each applied for our different schools and went for it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's what we're here to talk about. We've now gone on the other side. We've gotten accepted to the schools. We've gone through the programs, and we have many friends who we've even helped get into those programs as well through honest, hard work, and good mindset, passion. So that's what we have done at How to Get Into Drama School, and that's what we continue to do. So thank you, if you're watching, for being passionate about the craft. Thank you for doing what you do, whether you're a teacher or a parent or, of course, an actor who's growing. We're very proud to be here with you today, and I am happy to introduce always Brandon. Brandon is always here with me, my partner in crime, been helping people get into school. Thank you, Brandon.
Of course, of course, of course.
And of course, our guest tonight, Alejandro Rodriguez.
Yeah.
I will let Alejandro kind of introduce himself, but just so you guys know, I know you guys, if you read my email, you heard me, edify Alejandro. I think the world of this guy in so many different lights. He's just a genuinely awesome person to start. He is a very talented actor. I was growing with him as an actor for 4 years together at Juilliard, obviously also with Brandon. We were all classmates, and it was just incredible. He has worked with global nonprofits as a real difference maker in the arts and in poverty. And he's got so many different stories that we could go into for hours, but somehow we're going to focus on the next 30 to 45 minutes on how Alejandro got into drama school. We're going to ask him some questions, but first, I want to give him the floor and just let him introduce a little bit about your story, Alejandro. What could you share with us?
Yeah, wow. Well, I'll first say that it's a thrill to be on this call with my two beloved classmates. Although our paths have taken us to various corners of the country, there's never any love lost, and the connection is as strong as ever. So it makes me very happy just to be spending this time with them, and then with this wonderful mission that is at the heart of this incredible enterprise that you all have given your time and your experience to. So I'm just grateful to be here and to be able to contribute and hopefully share some things that might be useful, or at least get y'all's heads thinking and give you some new ideas. I'll try to be just be brief and lay down a couple of the plot points, because I know we're going to get into a little bit more granular detail around the audition experience. But I grew up in West Miami, Florida. My folks are from Havana, Cuba. My grandparents migrated in the 70s to the United States. And I grew up in West Miami in a very predominantly Cuban American community. My family was very devoutly Catholic, so I went to parochial school from very early on, and Jesuit high school after that. And so although there was a very passionate sort of English teacher, drama coach slash forensics, to like one of those all-in-one high school teachers who was very engaged and was a wonderful mentor, it certainly wasn't in any way a performing arts focused school. And so a lot of what I came to with regards to prepping my audition was very scattershot and discovered by different paths and picking up what I could as I went. And as Anthony, as Brandon hinted, I ended up in New York at about 17 years old in 2005 to start training at Juilliard in the drama division. And my path has been varied since then. I know that our focus is mainly on the time, prior to school and getting into there, but just so you kind of know who you're talking to, I definitely have spent a good deal of time in the sort of commercial acting industries, commercials, a couple of episodic TV shows, mostly in the theater off Broadway and around the country regionally, doing class of work and new plays. But simultaneous to that, and kind of just as important to me, has been my work in social justice. And I helped develop a nonprofit that, as Anthony was suggesting, has now sends volunteer artists all around the world. It's like Peace Corps, but for the arts. It's called Artists Striving to End Poverty, or ASTEP. And if you all want to get to know more about that organization, you can go to astep.org. But anyway, I find myself now as in arts leadership. I'm helping run a theater company in North Carolina as the associate artistic director. It's the largest theater in the Carolinas. Is called Playmakers Repertory. So have seen the theater from all different dimensions, all different angles, producing, directing, writing, acting, and still growing and still learning. And I'm not sure what's coming next, but I know I'll be ready for it, and I'm excited for it. So that's my story in brief, and looking forward to talking more about the audition process and how to get into drama school, which is, I know.
Yeah. So Brandon, obviously everybody knows we're coaching kids. We're in the thick of it right now. All these students are doing great work with us in our sessions. Brandon, as you kind of have been coaching students and stuff like that, and you're thinking about what's on their minds, what's a good question that you think could start us off as far as like what these students want to know and where they're at right now?
What they want to know is a lot of students always ask me, where did I find my pieces?
Yeah.
Where did I find this? Always like, where is it work that you've done already? Did you go and just read some plays at the library? So that would be probably the first question I pose to you, Andro, is how were you introduced to your pieces? And then attached to that, how did you know those were the ones?
That's a great question, and that I'm going to answer that in a bit of a story. I'll try not to be too long-winded, but because I actually only auditioned for 2 drama schools, and I switched pieces between audition 1 and audition 2, and actually very like in some ways very instructive. And I want to also put a caveat on it. I'm sure you all have said some version of this, but there really is no formula for these things, right?
That's right.
So,
Absolutely.
I just want to add my voice to say, like, I caution anyone to draw any universals out of like the particular stories that somebody shares with you. What worked for them in that time, so I'll say that as a caveat. I like most people, when I first got into school, when I first got into acting, I was doing some of the more like familiar so-called classic American plays in high school. I mean, we were doing, Death of a Salesman, and we read Tennessee Williams and Shakespeare and stuff. And when I was getting serious about acting, I started using some of my summers to go do some camps or do some training programs. But simultaneous, and I know this is something that Anthony and I share in common, is in high school, I also, at least for the first half of high school, was into speech and debate, and especially the acting portion of it, the interpretation events, which, believe it or not, actually exposed me to a really good, like, diverse swath of dramatic literature. In particular, speech and debate, I give credit for introducing me to like the first kind of non-European, non-white, non-European literature, like African diasporic writers. And in particular, like I was really drawn, I was a hip hop head growing up, and I got to know the writers at the time were called hip hop theater artists. Now, you know, it's funny, now I look back and I realize like they were called hip hop theater artists because they were working in the theater and they were not based in a European tradition. Like it wasn't really hip hop theater. They were just like black and brown folks making dope theater that involved like not just Aristotle's like well-made play, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I had their writing in mind, and I was very interested in it. And writers like Will Power and Danny Hawk and you know, Sarah Jones and stuff like that. So, but when I was thinking about auditioning for drama school, I went the summer before my senior year, right after junior year of high school. I went to a college preparatory program. Yeah, it was a pre-college program, and they assigned me monologues. They gave me a Neil Simon monologue and a particular speech of Shakespeare's from Henry IV, Part 1. It was sort of the perfect balance, right? They were like good, like they were appropriate pieces. They contrasted and they weren't too overdone. And we worked on them in class, and I like drilled them. And then I went off in whatever, January, February to my first audition, which was in Pittsburgh for a school called Carnegie Mellon. And I had a miserable time, man. Like I could tell that like I remember it was like super like blizzard snowy. I went in and I delivered the like way I had rehearsed the pieces. Everything was like obedient and checking the box, right? And I'll never forget that the acting teacher afterwards like asked me, you know, she had said like, oh, you get good grades. I saw your transcript. Where else are you applying? And I told her that I was also applying to a bunch of liberal arts and academic schools. And she straight up told me, you know, she was like, well, it's really a safer bet to you know, consider some of those universities. If you have such good grades, you should really think about, you know, going that safer route. And I'm sitting there thinking like, I'm auditioning for your school, yo. Like you're like me,
Yes.
like you're pretty much in my face telling me like, you're not coming here, you know? And I remember being really depressed. And really almost saying, screw this whole thing. I just felt my morale was gone. But it funny how things work out is that I had only one audition left, which was for a school that was already kind of a pipe dream, which was Juilliard. They accept less than 1% of students. So in addition to having this kind of tough experience in my first audition, I was going to a school that was even harder to get into. And so I kind of just said, F it. Just
right.
Listening. I said F it, and I threw away the appropriate pieces, and I went into my like database of pieces that I was just like, all right, I actually like this. I want to do this. And I did
the pieces that spoke to you, pieces that spoke to you actually felt like good to you in your spirit, in your heart, telling stories that you want to tell.
That's right. I did a play called Jails, Hospitals, and Hip Hop, like this Puerto Rican selling t-shirts on the Bronx. And then I did what people told me I should never do, which is I did Hamlet for Juilliard. Like they say, never do Hamlet. Hamlet's overdone. But I was like, I'm not getting in, so I'm just going to do a play that I've always wanted to do.
Dang.
And
so which Hamlet?
I did, oh, that this too solid flesh would melt, thaw, and
Can you feel it, people? Can you feel the passion?
Yeah, man. But yes. I was like a know nothing from Miami, so I turned a chair around like if I was AC Slater in Saved by the Bell, like smoking a fake cigarette as I said the monologue. Like I don't know what I was doing. I was so like audacious, you know. But it worked out in the end. They called me like a month later and asked me to join Group 38. Which
yes. We were honored. And you know what sounds so good about this story? What's so great story is that it's really a lesson in following your heart, man. I'm sure that they love the fact that you thought outside the box. You didn't try to go in there and do the perfect cookie cutter Shakespeare monologue. Like, you know, you turned the chair around, you smoked a fake cigarette. Like, you know, this is how I think. This is my portrayal of Hamlet. And I think that's what all these pieces need to be. Your portrayal of those. Not what your idea is, not what your friend did, not what you saw a famous person do. Your portrayal of who that means.
Yeah, and I'll add, I think that's exactly right, Brandon. I'll add like you have this opportunity, these 3-5 minutes to like show that you have a voice as an artist. And because to be honest, they know they can give you technique. They're not looking at, you know, from my perspective, they're not looking at like, oh, does he have a robust resume, or is his you know, like vocal production where it needs to be. Like that's what they're going to train you on. What they want to know is, does this person have something to say? And one of the ways you show that you have a voice is by what you pick to do, and how you present it shows like I'm not just obedient. I'm not just like following the beaten path. I actually have something to say in the world that's unique and unique to me. So that's just a way of saying, heck yeah, I think that's right on.
That's awesome. I think that is totally obviously in line with everyone who's heard our motto at How to Get into Drama School. It's not about the piece. It's about your relationship to the piece.
Ooh, I like that.
Get the snap from Alejandro. You know we're on.
Yes, come on.
Guys, it's there's no right piece to do. You guys already know that. And Alejandro's story is super inspiring to hear. I'm so glad. Like, you went to Carnegie Mellon with the cookie cutter piece, right? And you did it probably great. Like, in other words, correct.
Yeah, correctly.
And they were like, go to academic school, right? Or I'm just,
right.
You know.
Yeah.
And he went to Juilliard and was like, man, I'm going to do what I do.
Yeah.
And just whatever.
Yeah.
And they saw that. And you know, I know Brandon's audition, my audition, we had aspects of, even though we had these prepared pieces, you can't really fake the raw passion that you have for a piece.
Passion and fire, yeah. Passion you cannot fake.
And we see that. Cannot fake it. So we see that in your pieces when we're working with you, and we comment on it if we think it's, you know, as you know, we comment on it if we think it's not really vibing. So anyway, I want to ask you another question, Alejandro. As we work on these pieces, can you give us an idea of how you worked on your piece? I know you said that you got some stuff at the summer workshop before your senior year, but like when you had your pieces, Jails, Hospitals, and Hip Hop and Hamlet, like, how did you work on them? Did you ask your drama teacher? Did you have an outside coach? Tell us about a little bit about that process and even that timeline.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I some of that like some of that happened because I switched pieces within the course of a month. It's an interesting thing where I avoided something that I think is worth being vigilant of in this process, is like, you don't want to overcook your pieces and deliver, like, I think about it as like, you know, you want there's still to be blood in the meat, right? Like people they don't want overcooked. You want there to be like wet, red and juicy in there.
Some juices, yeah.
So it's not that you can't find pieces you love early on and actually find interesting and creative ways to work on them over the course of months. But I would say, I guess, you know, if I would be allowed a moment to like share a piece of advice from my perspective, is like, it's not about drilling pieces so that you are saying them the same way, or like, you know how this line's going to come out, is actually quite dangerous. And I think that's maybe one of the things that happened at Carnegie Mellon, is that I had drilled the pieces so that I felt like I knew how they were going to go. And that gave me a sense of control. And control feels good because our brains are wired to want control, but control is not interesting on stage. Actually, what's interesting on stage is being in response to the moment, you know, and what the moment presents itself, right? So I think what happened with the second group of pieces is I think I worked on them, but I was working on them in a very like, I was experimenting with them, you know. I think even certain choices, I think I discovered maybe even in Chicago, like at the hotel where I was auditioning, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I'm gonna actually tell the story this way, you know. I knew the play Jails, Hospitals, and Hip Hop very well, but I had never worked on this character in it. And so one takeaway I think that I ended up learning actually in training an accidentally useful thing, was that I just got to know the play really well.
I was just about to say that. Yeah, you made sure you knew the circumstances so well, the characters, their relationships, what was going on, that it gave you such a good parameter that you could do anything within.
That's it. That's it. I knew the world of the story. I knew the wants of the character. And then inside that frame, you could dance, you could riff, you can, it's the difference between playing classical music note by note and playing jazz. I think I was able to riff because I knew the world well. And the same thing with Hamlet. Hamlet was a play that I had studied in school, and I had never worked on this piece, but it didn't matter because I knew what the story was for Hamlet in that first scene. And
right.
And then, I got to say, I also brought some whatever technical understanding I had at that point. And if you're working with Anthony and Brandon, you're ahead of the curve, which is, how to keep the verse line together, how to try to find operative words, like there's some technical stuff with classical material that it's just helpful to have a sense of. It's not to say that you can't be great without it, but it's just helpful. It kind of helps you speed you along. So I did apply some of that knowledge. And yeah, I tried to discover it and find it in the room, and it worked out.
I cannot wait. Yeah, I cannot wait to hear about Alejandro's experience in the room. We're not going to get there just yet. We're going to save that.
That's a funny story.
I can't wait. Brandon, what else? I have a
question. I want to know, Alejandro, you only auditioned for 2 schools? Mm-hmm. Or they're both conservatories?
Mm-hmm.
Why only 2 schools? And do you think that you should have auditioned for more, or are you okay with the 2 that you chose?
Yeah. It's interesting because I had I knew by my senior in high school that I wanted to be a professional actor, but because of a couple of experiences that I had prior, including like I spent a summer away in Dublin through a program run by NYU, and I got to know a little bit of like the European approach to actor training, and then that summer pre-college program was had its ups and downs. There also, like, I remember being given this piece of advice that I have mixed feelings about now by an actor who was in New York, who had gone to my high school, like the one other person from my tiny high school that had gone and become a professional actor, who his advice was like, well, he gave that old school advice, like, well, if you can do anything else and be happy, do that, which I feel not so hot about these days. I actually have an approach now of like, if you can do anything else, do that too, like go in multiple directions at the same time, or go one after, like, as in the world of the arts, as an artist, every part of your personality is going to be useful to you. Everything.
Right. You're a perfect example of that. You are a perfect example of that, being in the leadership and also being an artistic actor positions. I always say that the more you can do, the more you will work.
Amen. Amen. That's great.
The more you can do, the more you will work.
So just to answer that question, like, yeah, and I got to a point of I don't know, understanding that I was going to get to the path of being a professional actor, but that I was willing to have it take some different paths. So I thought to myself, well, if I can, these are 2 programs that I know well, and I'm confident I'd be happy at. But I also know I'd be happy studying psychology. I'd be happy studying politics. I'd be happy studying history. And maybe my path is to study that in undergrad and then maybe train in grad school as an actor, or maybe not. Maybe I'd go to undergrad and take that degree in political science and move to New York and try my hand at auditioning. Like, I even at that point understood that there might be various paths to my destination, because ultimately when I read about the biographies of my favorite actors, they didn't all have the same path. you as much as I'm proud of like the alumni of Juilliard, not every great actor working in the business went to Juilliard or Carnegie Mellon or NY. Actually, some of them have really idiosyncratic paths, you know. Some of them studied in grad school, others have degrees in other things. So because I was always kind of very intellectually curious, I gave myself a broad range of programs. I actually applied to study different things at different schools based on what interested me about that school. So like University of Chicago has a world famous like psychology department. This author, John Dewey, sort of helped create it. And I was like, that'd be cool. Study psychology in Chicago. Yale has a world famous history program. I was like, it'd be cool to study history at Yale. Acting at Juilliard. So I just kind of scattered I don't know. I'm trying not to cuss. I just scattered my interest around.
We can't cuss here. We don't cuss.
Oh snap! How to get?
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Get it together, man.
And ultimately was willing to go where it was towards where the door opened, you know, and just had a little bit of faith in that regard. So that's kind of how it ended up for me.
That's awesome. I love that story. You know, what we're obviously seeing in the through line of all these stories is, what are you responding to? Whether it's, what schools am I going to apply to? What path am I going to take? What monologues am I going to choose? At this point in your life, you're too young to kind of sell out to some sort of cookie cutter belief. You need to completely check in with what you're responding to and make decisions based on that. You know,
yeah.
And what I also hear, so what I also hear tied to Alejandro's passion is specificity.
Mm-hmm.
He knew I was going to go to this school for that. I'm going to go to this school for that. And for this school, I need this, and for that. And so it's the specificity of his dreams. He's just not shooting in the dark. You know, so it's doing the research on your schools, knowing what your school is good for, knowing what pieces or what plays they've done before, what productions, what people have graduated from there. It's like knowing the specifics can only help you get into the school.
Yeah, man.
The more information you know.
I'll add this. I think you should be like, I would encourage people to be suspicious of any dogma or formula or hierarchy. Like, I think that U.S. News and World Report rating system is a bunch of bullshit. Now that you told me I can cuss, I'm gonna go crazy. With
Go for it.
I think anything that lists schools in a sort of order and tries to rank them is actually very misleading. Because it's about fit more than anything else. It's about symbiosis and synergy. It's about your classmates. It's about finding that one faculty member who sees you and is going to hold the bar high, you know, and you don't know where you're going to find that. You do your research, you visit campus if you can, you talk to alumni, you get as close to the target, like Brandon said, you get as specific as you can. But any time that you find yourself tempted to believe that that there is a universal best program or a universal like path, I think you should question that, because I don't think that's the way learning happens. I think learning is very unique and eccentric and customized. It's custom to who you are and what you're looking for.
Absolutely.
And
we have a question. Go ahead.
On top of that, it's just like, you know, you should question that universal path, but you also should challenge that. Challenge that and know that you're going to succeed and you're going to hit your goals by doing it your way.
Thank you.
By doing it your way, knowing that there's a way uniquely for you. There's a school uniquely for you. There's a class uniquely for you. There are pieces uniquely for you.
Yes. This is when I'd play Usher's My Way. If I had like my like boom, I'd play that right now.
None of these students would get it.
We're old.
Yeah, we're old.
We liked Usher back when he was singing My Way. All right, so
yeah, do that. That's a little bit of homework. YouTube the video My Way. That man can dance. That man can
not sing 16 bars from My Way. Anita, who is in conversation with us and getting some, yeah, she's awesome. She said, speaking of pieces, am I allowed to do pieces outside of female monologues? For example, if I find a male monologue that I really connect with or emotionally relate to, should I do it? Thoughts?
Yeah, my experience, and I can also say that this is informed from being a panelist and in auditions. Before I moved to North Carolina, sat in on the Juilliard auditions for 2 or 3 years, and I can tell you that if you can believe yourself saying the things that your character is saying, and you have utter conviction that that you're in the world of the play and that it makes sense to you that you're saying these things to the person you're saying them to, we will suspend our disbelief and go with you. And almost there, I can tell you, I remember instances in which we realized that a character swapped genders only afterwards, when we thought like, oh wait, that's actually a man. It's supposed to be a man in that play, right? I would say if you have trouble believing yourself, we're going to have trouble believing you. But if you completely buy yourself and get swept into the reality of that situation, the auditors will also travel with you, to that. I would say, of course, it shouldn't just be a gimmick. It shouldn't be like, watch what I can do, and it's not about like being different for the sake of being different. But my goodness, if you are passionate about a monologue that just happens to be spoken by a man, and there's no reason why it couldn't be spoken by a woman, then there's, as far as I know, no rules against that.
I totally agree with Alejandro. And also to say to that, I think a good first step to that, if you're thinking of doing that, is to approach the character as human. There's no gender to that. Approach the character, go after their humanity. Go after their humanity. What do they want? What do they need? What is their obstacle? What's their emotional life? Go after their humanity first. And honestly, sometimes the gender doesn't even matter because you're telling the human story.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and I'll add to that too. Like, one of the biggest things that's going to happen in an audition to a school that you're going to eventually get into is they're going to ask you to make an adjustment. So if you feel comfortable in that situation that the character is in, and they throw a curveball at you, say, okay, great, that was awesome, do it again. This time, let's pretend like you're at your father's grave saying the same thing, and totally throws the circumstance of that moment off, totally throws the circumstance or the moment, right? Can you be malleable enough to continue with that humanity? And I think that as long as you can take that monologue anywhere, and that's what we do in our sessions, right? We go through exercises. We try to take that monologue through the garden of everything. If you can take that monologue anywhere, it will go with you. Yeah. So good question. All right. Well, it's 7:42. I'm sorry, my time. So we're 42 minutes in. What do you say we get into this audition experience? Let's find out what happened when Alejandro walked into the Juilliard room for the first time. We want to give the floor to Alejandro. Let's hear it, man. What was your feelings? What happened?
All right. So it starts by, and there's lessons in all of this. I'll try not to be too didactic. It starts by my seeing this room monitor that has like red hair, is kind of like dressed down, doesn't appear to me to be like an actor, doesn't look like an artist. And so I honestly assume that this is somebody maybe hired by the hotel, or like is just a human, is a regular human.
Regular human.
She happens to be wearing a New York Yankees cap, and I feel so at ease with this person that I start like talking. I'm on deck. I start talking to them and having an exchange about like, I grew up in Miami, and if you're not a New York, if you're a sports fan and you're not from New York, chances are you hate New York sports teams. And so I started needling her about her Yankees cap and like, oh my God, the Yankees you know, are so they buy all the time. She gave me crap. Who do you like? And I'll tell you who that person was at the end of the story. But I had a great rapport with this person because I didn't treat them as like some important person. I just was very human, and it was great because it allowed me to be very comfortable and in my body and at ease when I walked into the room. I did my 2 pieces. They asked if I had a third, and thank goodness I had those like good proper pieces from CMU that I still had. And I said, yeah, do you want a Shakespeare contemporary? They said the Shakespeare. So I went ahead and I did Henry IV, which was the one that I had prepared in the summer. And then something interesting happened, which it turns out that in the Juilliard audition requirements, they say to prepare like 16 bars or maybe 32 bars, I forget, of a song. I missed that part of the.
Oh my gosh.
So they said, can you sing your song for us? And I said, yes, I can.
Duh. Of course I can.
I literally remember my thought process. My thought process was, what can you sing? No, not Happy Birthday. Don't sing Happy Birthday. And then in a moment, I launched into the chorus of A Whole New World by Aladdin.
Oh my
yes.
God.
I barely know that song, so I just sang like 4 lines twice in a row. Like I sang the same hook twice in a row. But I was living for it. I was like, you know what? This is the sword I'm going to die on, but I'm going to be the guy who went out singing Aladdin. And I honestly think it's probably what got me the callback, is because I was just like, whatever, here we go. Like I walked around the room, I like hopped on a chair and I went for it. And they laughed and they said, thank you. And then I went back later that afternoon, and there was a whole sea of people looking at this woman who I had talked to, who, lo and behold, is the administrative director of the Juilliard School, a woman that we know and love named Kathy Hood. And Kathy Hood is has as much of a say as anybody in terms of who gets into Juilliard. She like is one of the people who runs the department. And I didn't know that, thank goodness, or I would have been nervous and crapping my pants. I just was talking to her. Anyway, Kathy puts a list and it has one name on it. And
oh my gosh.
Whoa.
I'm far away from the list. I kind of move slowly closer and closer. I realized like that name's pretty long and my name's pretty long. So this is good.
No way.
And one person had gotten called back from that day, and it was my name. And so I didn't make a big to-do about it because all these other young actors were going to have to sort of go home and not have a callback. So I kind of like kept it to myself until I got back to my hotel room where my mom was waiting for me. And we did like Tyrannosaurus Rex arms, like,
oh my gosh, that's incredible. Okay, so
wow.
That's part 1, but let's talk about this. You're in Chicago. For those of you who are not familiar, back when we were auditioning, there was only 1 day of auditions. Now they actually bring folks for a weekend, and you actually get to have class and you get to experience it. It's called the Callback Weekend, which is great. But we know from our experience that Alejandro only had 1 day with them. So that was the first half of the day, right? And then you came back that evening, correct, for callbacks?
Yes.
All right. So Brandon, before we get into that, what is your comments about Alejandro's initial audition?
It's just that he's done so well with taking the pressure off of himself. He wasn't like, oh my God, it's Juilliard. You didn't know it was Kathy Hood. You struck up casual conversation. You were in the room. You sang Aladdin. What I keep thinking is that he just kept being himself. He kept being 100% authentic to himself. He wasn't trying to put on, because, you know, all these schools, they want great young people with talent who are interesting, who are lovable to be around. That's what they want. They want them to be you. Be you. Be yourself.
Absolutely.
I'm really glad for you to draw that out, Brandon, because the reason why I can nod and say that's true is because I had an audition experience where I did the other thing. Even what I wore to the auditions, if you saw a picture, it would tell the same story. In CMU, I wore a button-down J. Crew, like, here I am with my polish. I didn't talk to anyone. I like had my headphones in. I did what I thought was the thing that I needed to do. And my experience at Juilliard was radically different. I went in like my baseball t-shirt, and I looked like myself, you know? And so I'm only able to acknowledge that you're right. You're exactly right about the experience, because I actually did an audition where I was trying to get it right and trying to check off the boxes. And I'm glad I switched it up.
Yeah, I also will point out that I love that, by the way, learning what you wore to the 2 different auditions. And, you know, again, none of this is a formula. We don't want anybody wearing t-shirts to auditions, but at the same time, we're not telling you not to either. It's just like, you know, we want you to be you. If there's anything that's going to restrict you being your full self or delivering your best work and being the most free you can be, then, you know, you want to check that. But otherwise, one thing I noticed about Alejandro's audition is that the guy was committed. Like, you know, you didn't describe your 2 monologues, but you were passionate about them. And I can only imagine the type of energy and raw passion that you delivered. But then when he told, they asked Alejandro, what do you have for us for a song? There was probably a millisecond or 2 that was going through his mind, but ultimately it looked like he's launching into it. And this guy was committed. You heard him. He was walking around the room, jumping on chairs, who knows what. But the point is, he wasn't going to be like, so I'm not, you know, he's not going to be less than 100% committed. And I remember that about my audition too. I know Brandon's talked about this. Like, man, when they gave you something, when they asked you something, absolutely, your willingness to put your full creative energy into whatever you're doing is a standout feature, no doubt.
Absolutely. To just put yourself out there and to be okay with like being wrong or quote unquote being bad or making a mistake, effing it up, you know? And I think that's also what they enjoyed. Balls to the wall. I'm gonna throw something against the wall, see if it sticks, see if this works, you know? And I love that, you know, when we were in school, Alejandro didn't look at himself as a singer, but he took his fear and he threw it aside. His fear not for 1 second stopped him. No judgment on himself, no judgment on what he was about to produce. He was like, well, maybe I can't quote unquote sing, but I can tell you a story through song.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's all that is. That's all that 16 bars is when you go to an acting school. They want to know, can you just tell the story through song?
Yeah. Yeah.
Spoken right there from a Broadway actor, by the way. Brandon, on Broadway currently. Okay, we'll get back to that. Alejandro, second part of your day. You're going in for the callback. It's all you. Nobody else.
Yeah, my callback was a little bit unique, and I haven't really had a lot of people share a similar experience. I mean, one thing that was interesting is that there were about 5, because in Chicago they it was like I don't know if it was the day before callbacks or maybe I was the callbacky from like the morning sessions, and they also called some people back from the afternoon sessions. But there were about 5 of us, and 4 of the other maybe there were 6, and 4 of the people were like in their zone, not connecting with anyone else, like headphones or and there was one other guy who was in the room who was like looking up and looking to talk, and I hit it off with that person. In fact, we went afterwards to go see a Second City show, and his name was Adam Driver, and he was the other person from our callback that got into.
I had no idea.
Wow.
Yeah, everybody else was like not being like social, and me and Adam were like, "What's up, dude? How are you? Like, you're from Indianapolis. You have big ears. What's up, dude?" Like, and we got no idea. We hit it off. But what was weird is that I think I was later in the night. I think maybe I was the last one, and I walked in and they put like a Edgar Allan Poe prose paragraph in front of me. They wanted me to cold read.
Yep.
So I read it out loud, first time, you know, cold. And then they asked me a couple of questions, and we talked for like 20 minutes. And then they said, that's all we need. And so I haven't heard since another example of a time where your callback didn't involve you getting up and doing your monologues,
Fascinating.
monologue
They
again.
were just sold.
Well,
Oh, you didn't do your monologues again
I
at all.
didn't. I was not asked to do my monologues again. I cold read and we talked about things, and then I walked out and I looked at Kathy on the way out, who I considered my pal now. You know, like that's. And I go like this. I go, that was weird. And she goes, what do you mean? I was like, I didn't do my pieces again. Like, I don't know how to feel about that. And I'll never forget this, dude. It's crazy. You guys are asking me to think about this.
So awesome.
She said, maybe they saw all they needed to see, you know? And I was like, but that's kind of ominous, you know, that could be a good thing. That also could be like a not so good thing. So she didn't exactly tell me like wink, wink. She just said like, maybe they saw what they needed to see. And then I went to go see a Second City show with Adam Driver and didn't think about it until I got the call in French class. And when I saw that there was a New York, why was my phone on in French class? Don't tell my parents. But when I saw there was a missed call from New York City, I was like, Mrs. Voler, may I use the restroom, please? So I went to the bathroom and realized that the message was from New York. And when I called back, Kathy said, we'd like to invite you to join the class of 2019, I guess.
Wow.
No, 2009, sorry, not 19. Yeah.
Isn't that wild? Oh my gosh, wow. Even you talking about it, that just brings back so many like feelings and memories, man. But what I liked about what you said and want to point out is that just because something happens in the audition where maybe you don't get any direction or they don't ask you to do it a second time, or again, there's no formula. There's no formula to the preparation. There's no formula to the execution.
Yeah.
Or what can happen in the room.
Yeah.
He did his monologues for people one time and that was it.
Yeah.
No direction, no nothing else, no.
And I think that's a great takeaway, Brandon, is like, don't read into it. Like you may have spent a lot of time in the room and get a lot of adjustments, and that might be a great thing. They might say thank you pretty swiftly. You don't know. It literally could be that they saw enough to call you back. Maybe not, you know, but you're right. There isn't a sign that you can hang your hat on that they liked you or they didn't like you. It really can go in any direction.
And I can relate, actually, I'm sure we all can, to current students who are about to audition, or that, you know, let's say go through it. We're with the students, by the way, on their audition day. So we're talking to certain students if they want to talk to us, and, you know, we're emotionally right there with you, and we know how it feels. We still don't know to this day what got us in. Okay, so they never tell us, at least at Juilliard, like what it was that they loved about us, or, you know, Alejandro didn't do any adjustments. I did a decent amount of adjustments. I've heard people who have done way more adjustments than me, you know, so even to this day, we relate. We still don't know what it is. And, you know, it's like, just let it be, you know, it is what it is. All you do is show up as you, show up doing your work as much passion and you can put into a piece, man, do it and play.
And do it. Yeah. I did 3 monologues twice, each of them.
Wow.
So, you know, like,
yeah, that's nuts, man. And you auditioned in New York, of course. You were across the street.
Right, auditioned in New York. And who was in my callback? Me, Tiana, Stacy, and Jorge Chacon.
Whoa! Oh, and Jorge didn't get into the following year.
Right.
Yo, that's nuts, man.
Yeah.
I'm holding back on asking you guys because
we will chat. But this was great. Is there any other questions that we have for Alejandro? This has been phenomenal. Thank you, Alejandro, for sharing your story. Anything else that we can always do this again, by the way. There's just an endless amount of help we can give, but I thought this was so awesome. Anything else, guys?
I mean, I don't know. You dropped some gems. Just literally hearing your story and your experiences and your thought patterns going through it. It's just so helpful. It's so helpful. It's so helpful. Hearing
your voice, hearing your story, where you came from, your family, your high school upbringing, just being 17 years old and like, just bringing it. It's great to hear. And your story is really valuable.
Thank you, guys. I mean, I really hope it's useful. And I think if anything, I would say, sing your song, find your song and sing your song. And I mean that not only about your song, but I mean, in the August Wilson sense of like, what's your song, I'm here, if I can be useful to you guys. Anthony and Brandon know they can, I'm a text away. Those are my lifelong homies. So,
yes, sir.
I'm nearby, and I appreciate anyone who's out there listening. And like I said, I hope this was useful. And bon voyage. It's a crazy adventure, but you only do it once, and you make some incredible memories. So I wish everyone well.
Yes. So everybody have a great night. You can log off now. We really appreciate you coming on. We'll definitely keep you up to date. Follow our Instagram for updates like this. Obviously, you can email me at anthony@howtogetintodramaschool.com. Same with Brandon at howtogetintodramaschool.com. If you want to talk to Alejandro, we probably can get you some time and carve out a little moment with Alejandro if you have a specific question or two. But anyway, have a great night, everybody.
Yes. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Ale.
Awesome.